Analyzing riot assessment data. Understanding data to inform instruction. All teachers take data, whether or not they realize it. All teachers take a variety of daily data, from attendance and lunch count each morning to the collection of performance scores to compute for grades. Data collection is an inherent function of teaching. As we've already discussed this semester, sound assessment practice includes a clear purpose that answers an educational question, define targets that are related directly to that purpose, that sound assessment results yield accurate information related to that purpose, that those results communicate information, and we want to make sure that that information about the results can be clearly shared with a variety of audiences related to the purpose, that the student is involved, that the student begins to understand what's being assessed so they can adjust their own learning to move toward the target related to purpose. One purpose for assessment is assessment for learning. And as we've discussed this semester, we take assessment on daily lessons and ongoing instruction in our own ongoing manner in order to inform our next steps for instruction. There's a lot of ways we can record that data on tables or on notes of qualitative information. We clearly have our own way each day on our daily reflection for our lessons. And your teacher, your CT, may have grade books and other ways for you to record that data. Here's some examples of teachers' daily data. We can use a work sample for item analysis or a daily recording sheet that's ongoing to look at individual lessons over time, to look at student progress. We may create a summary data sheet that's even more formal or use an official gradebook. We ask questions to analyze the data we receive. What can students do? What can they not do? What are individual or group strengths and errors? Are there any patterns in those strengths and errors for individuals or for groups? What are the strategies used that were successful? Which were most effective? Maybe also which were ineffective. What are next steps? Another assessment purpose is to gain knowledge of a learner. Our riot assessment provides relevant information from a variety of sources to answer assessment questions on academic performance or behavior. The riot organizes information in order to benefit our analysis and to help us to make instructional decisions. Given these decisions, we can design a potentially successful intervention. So our riot provides us a variety of assessment tools to find accurate information related to assessment questions related to a concern. Review of records. If you'll remember, there is a variety of records available, and we talked about a number of different ones, including educational reports, or past and current IEPs, or medical records, among others. Questions you might ask yourself to analyze records. What does the information tell us about the student? Their characteristics, their learning preferences, their likes or dislikes. What information is relevant to student learning, especially in relation to our concern? Are there any apparent trends or patterns within the data, especially those, again, related to the concern? What does the information tell us about current student performance, or rate of progress, or performance over time? Does the information present a consistent picture, or is there some conflicting information? One example, attendance records show that a student is frequently absent on Fridays. And then, when looking within the classroom behavioral data, there's an apparent pattern with frequent refusal to transition throughout the morning on Mondays and on Fridays following an absence. Interviews. With interviews, we gain information from specific people with knowledge of the learner. And we talked about a variety of people we might interview, including the students themselves or their peers, teachers, parents or guardian, other educational professors, professionals such as the paraprofessionals in your classroom, or service providers like the speech and language pathologist. And we also talked about lots of ways to give interviews, whether face-to-face or through email, with surveys, in a conference, with questionnaires. To analyze interviews, we ask ourselves the following questions. What does the information tell us about student characteristics, learning preferences, likes or dislikes? How about learning responses and preferences? Are there any apparent trends or patterns across a variety of perspectives? What does the information indicate regarding student learning and learning needs? Are there any specific strategies that are seen as successful? Does the information present a consistent picture, or are there some conflicting pieces of information? For example, one type of interview might be the motivation assessment scale. And in this case, across 3 responders, including the classroom teacher, a general educator, and the speech and language pathologist, all resulted with escape and a desire for a tangible as the motivation for or potential function of a stated concern. Observations. Again, we've already discussed this, but there are indeed multiple forms of observation that help us gain insight and relevant information. We can observe aspects of the environment. We could compare other student data. We can look at physical consideration, curriculum and materials, schedule and organization, teaching methodology, classroom monitoring and management. We might use tools such as ecological inventories, structured observations, rating scales, rubrics, and checklists, charts such as environmental matrix or G-charts, or a scatter plot. We also include direct observational systematic data recording, anecdotal recording, ABC observation, and systematic observational data recording, including event recording, duration recording, latency recording, time sampling, and or interval recording, all give us very, very pertinent and clear information. We ask questions for data analysis, including what does the information or data tell us about student performance in relation to classroom variables? What do we notice that impacts the student's performance? Does the student perform differently in different circumstances or settings or situations, with different teaching styles or people present? Are there any apparent trends or patterns within the data? And does the data present a consistent picture, or is there some conflicting information? For example, patterns can be seen when you're reviewing such things as anecdotal records, ABC recording, and or scatter plots. In this example, using a highlighter, we could see that this learner consistently responded to redirection when engaged in nonsense talking. Tests, and in our case, we're featuring curriculum-based assessment, or highlighting that in our riot. Remember, and we've already discussed this, that curriculum-based assessment, according to Dino, who is the major researcher, in 1987, he said, any set of measurement procedures that use direct observation and recording of students' performance in a local curriculum as a basis for gathering information to make instructional decisions is curriculum-based assessment. Curriculum-based assessment can be used both to develop goals for instruction and evaluate the student's progress through the curriculum. Curriculum-based assessment is connected to the development of goals and methodology for instruction, and the results of our CBA will assist us in determining what and how to teach, sensitive to an individual learner. As we've previously discussed, there are many types of curriculum-based assessment. Any classroom tasks, for example, including written assignments and products, quizzes and tests, or rating scales, such as rubrics and checklists. And remember that direct observational recording is also a form of curriculum-based assessment. For example, we often use event recording when we're working with students with adaptive needs, and we're recording the type of prompting they need to be successful on an academic trial. Questions for data analysis when using a CBA? What are the current levels of performance? Are prerequisite skills strong enough to build upon? What are the priorities for instruction? Which skills need to be developed next, sequentially? What skills need to be developed based on priorities for the student, concerning parent and student preferences, educational priorities, or functional priorities? For example, a CBA may be created to look at a variety of skills within a given content area. And then you can determine specific skills that are priority. Printing numerals or counting pictured items, in this case, seem to me to be areas that we might target. Most importantly, for our evidence-based practice application, we will use the riot assessment process to gather and analyze relevant information to answer assessments questions posed to allow us to gain knowledge of a learner and to design a successful intervention for a current area of concern due to limited